You might think brain damage only happens with age, but you could be destroying your brain every single day, without even realizing it. That brain fog, forgetfulness, or lack of focus. It's not just stress, it's a warning sign. And by the time most people notice, it's already too late. So let's get into the habits that are secretly destroying your brain. 1. Ever feel like your brain is running on fumes after a bad night's sleep? That's because it literally is. Your brain has these cleaning cells that clear out dead neurons and waste while you sleep, but when you're constantly depriving yourself of rest, these cells start attacking healthy brain cells too. Imagine your brain slowly eating itself just because you think sleep is optional. The result? Slower thinking, mood swings, memory problems, and a higher risk of Alzheimer's and stroke. You might think you're just staying up late, but what you're actually doing is damaging your brain's long-term ability to function. 2. You already know sugar is bad for your body, but it's wrecking your brain even worse. Too much sugar causes brain inflammation, weakens memory, and actually shrinks the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for learning. Ever heard of type 3 diabetes? That's what some doctors are calling Alzheimer's now because of how sugar damages brain function. And don't think you're safe just because you don't eat candy. Sugar is hiding in almost everything processed. If you keep drowning your brain in sugar, you're making it slower, foggier, and weaker over time. 3. Most people treat stress like it's just an emotional issue, but it's physically destroying your brain. Chronic stress floods your system with cortisol, a hormone that's supposed to help in emergencies, but when it stays high all the time, it shrinks your brain and kills off neurons. That's why when you're stressed, your memory turns to garbage, your focus disappears, and you feel mentally exhausted. Over time, stress rewires your brain for anxiety and depression, making it harder to function even in normal situations. If you don't learn how to control stress, you're letting it slowly chip away at your brain's ability to think and remember. 4. You think doing 5 things at once makes you more productive? Wrong. Every time you switch tasks, your brain has to stop, reset, and refocus, and that process drains mental energy. The more you multitask, the more you train your brain to be distracted all the time. That's why people who constantly multitask have weaker focus, slower problem-solving skills, and worse memory. Your brain isn't built to handle multiple things at once, it's built to go deep into one thing at a time. If you keep multitasking, you're training yourself to become worse at everything. 5. You might think sitting all day just makes you out of shape, but it's actually messing up your brain too. Your brain relies on movement to keep blood and oxygen flowing. The less you move, the less oxygen your brain gets, and the slower it functions. Studies show that people who sit all day have thinner brain regions, meaning weaker memory, slower thinking, and a higher risk of dementia. If you feel foggy, tired, or just mentally sluggish, your brain probably needs movement. 6. You might not realize it, but every time you cut yourself off from people for too long, your brain slows down. Humans are wired for social connection. When you isolate yourself, your brain activity drops, leading to slower thinking, weaker problem-solving skills, and even faster brain aging. Ever notice how after days of not talking to people, your thoughts feel sluggish? That's because your brain needs social interaction to stay sharp. If you don't challenge it with conversations and new perspectives, it starts to weaken over time. 7. Every time you scroll through social media, your brain gets quick hits of dopamine, the same chemical that makes you feel good when you eat junk food or gamble. Over time, this constant flood of instant gratification rewires your brain to crave short bursts of pleasure, making it harder to focus on real, meaningful tasks. That's why reading a book feels exhausting, but watching random videos for hours is easy. Your brain is addicted to fast dopamine. The more you do this, the harder it gets to focus, remember things, or have patience for anything that doesn't give instant results. 8. Alcohol doesn't just mess up your liver, it's literally shrinking your brain. Drinking too much kills brain cells, slows down thinking, and weakens memory. Over time, it actually shrinks the parts of your brain responsible for decision-making and learning. And no, it doesn't have to be full-blown alcoholism. Even just drinking too much on weekends can slowly damage your brain's ability to function. If you've ever had a night of heavy drinking and felt mentally slow the next day, that's because alcohol is literally numbing your brain. 9. Your brain is 75% water, and even a small amount of dehydration can shrink it. That's why when you don't drink enough water, you feel foggy, tired, and sluggish. When your brain doesn't have enough water, it struggles to send signals properly, making thinking slower and less efficient. If you ever feel like your brain just isn't working right, drink a glass of water first. You might just be drying out your own brain. 10. Your brain is like a muscle. If you don't challenge it, it weakens. If you go through life without learning new things, reading, or solving problems, your brain literally starts to shrink. That's why people who stop learning as they get older decline faster. You don't have to go back to school, but if you're not feeding your brain with new knowledge, you're letting it rot. 11. Stuffing yourself with junk food doesn't just make you gain weight, it floods your brain with inflammation. When you overeat, especially ultra-processed foods, you overload your system with toxins that slow down brain function, weaken memory, and increase the risk of dementia. That sluggish, tired feeling after eating too much. That's not just a food coma, it's your brain struggling to keep up. 12. Caffeine can be great for focus, but too much of it overstimulates your brain, leading to burnout. If you're chugging coffee or energy drinks all day, your brain is running on high alert nonstop. That constant stimulation overloads your nervous system, leading to anxiety, restlessness, and eventually mental exhaustion. Over time, your brain builds a tolerance, meaning you need more and more caffeine just to feel normal. If you're using caffeine as a crutch instead of letting your brain rest naturally, you're setting yourself up for burnout. Every single day, you're either feeding your brain or destroying it. If you keep abusing it with these habits, you're setting yourself up for weaker focus, slower thinking, and long-term damage. The good news? You can reverse the damage, but only if you start making changes today.